So, uh, let's just start first by you telling us what Xometry is, and then I want to get a little bit of your background.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really interesting business model, and it actually blends in well with my background because I've come from a mix of product development and working with machined or manufactured parts, additive manufacturing, and in the past I've run into this problem of sourcing, where you are sending out, five or six RFQs. You have your spreadsheet saying, please fill out quantity 1, 5, 10, 25, 50, seeing where your price breaks are. And then you send it out and wait. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you don't hear back. Sometimes it's, 4 or 5 days later. And then I joined on this team at Xometry, and their whole goal is to essentially eliminate the RFQ process for most basic parts by putting AI right into the front of that. And what that really means to us is like Xometry, so it's Xometry.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Xometry's website, you can upload a 3D CAD file, and it'll instantly give a price. It's not instant submission of quote. It's literally giving you a price that you can buy right then and there, as well as a lead time for spec manufactured components. So Xometry has a full listing of CNC machining, sheet metal, injection mold materials, as well as a bunch of 3D printing processes and materials under that. I think we have over 60 different 3D printing materials over 7 different processes.
What
So
about like
whether
more high volume stuff? A lot of our audience, they're going to make volumes of 10,000, 100,000, a million parts. Do you guys do jobs like that too, or not yet?
So it is we do, and I'm going to put a caveat on that because it's also very process dependent, right? So for example, 3D printing, I'm probably going to suggest an alternate process as you're scaling up from there. But from like a kind of a contract manufacturer standpoint, I think we can also pair up really well, because what Xometry does is we're not just a here's your price, get going site. We actually have a distributed manufacturing partner network. So our business model is based off Xometry being this storefront that connects work with those who are best able to produce it. So we have over 3,000 manufacturing partners. Most of these are small business manufacturers from all different disciplines. Like I said, machining, sheet metal fabrication. That's actually like one of the main groupings that we have on this network, and they have their sweet spots. There may be one where it's they have a lineup that's ready for full production. Swiss turn machine lining. There may be some that are job shops where they want high mix, high value work coming through, and we're actually able to take a look at that specific detail, like what's needed for that job based off the specifications, the quantities needed, and intelligently pair it with those shops that are able. Those shops on our partner
So
network.
you're a matchmaker.
Yeah, we are a matchmaker. It's a matchmaker, and it's there's actually a phrase for it coined in 2017 called MAAS, Manufacturing as a Service, and we're kind of I would say the leaders in the MOS movement, which is this whole idea of like almost taking the gig economy and turning the traditional RFQ process that's opaque, and you don't know why you got a price this way when you got a price this way from someone else, and putting a basically a baseline heartbeat on that model. Because we have this network giving this feedback of what a typical part price should be, we actually are able to figure out what's market fair, what is a price that a customer expects, and what is a price that a machine shop expects to do this job for.
All
And we're
right,
actually able
but
to do that.
that's amazing. However, uh, I'm so just make sure my
Yeah.
background. So
hmm
in addition to doing the journalism thing, I'm a machine tool dealer.
hmm
Um, we specialize in the higher production, like multi-spindle screw machines and um, rotary transfer machines, etc. So I deal in a world where values are uh, it's a very fluid thing, and I know I talk to customers too, and I mean they're negotiating. Even an automotive company, they're negotiating on like by the cent. So maybe there are certain items that are easier to find a market price, but how are you guys able to come up with this equation to figure out what the market price is? And is it fluid after you come up with this?
It is fluid. I will say our sweet spot on the auto quote side is that relatively lower volume, especially if you're talking
Yeah.
about the type of work that you're doing. Sub thousand needs for that. A lot of our
Hmm.
work is usually in the single digits to the dozens of parts that we see coming
I mean,
through.
that's super
Yeah,
valuable too.
it's
It's
amazing
just
because
a different field.
we don't have a minimum quantity order for this. But actually, a lot of our customers, including some of our major investors, they were customers first, like GE, BMW, Bosch, and Dell. They use us because it's really hard on their supply chain, which is set
To
up for
get
that
a small
CM.
volume.
Yeah, yeah, and so
That makes
yeah,
total sense because it's often that one little thing you need, and we find that too if we're like setting up a machine for somebody, we need a certain attachment made or
yeah.
something, and then you have to find that person, and then you have to. They're like, yeah, it'll be 6 weeks, and you're like 6 weeks to get us this one little part. So I guess that totally makes sense. So if a big guy wants, a onesie, twosie, that's like the perfect thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it works really well, and actually, I have a couple scenarios that I've talked with some of our. These are actually some of our manufacturing partners, and it's kind of like a slashy. It's manufacturing partner slash customer. So here's a couple examples that I've seen that are really common across manufacturers using Xometry as kind of almost a machine shop extension. So situation one is uh, there's a kind of a hard rule, in this manufacturer A shop where they don't really want to go over 80% capacity. And that's because there's always that oh crap moment where their best customer comes in and is like, hey man, I really need you to do these parts. Can you do it for me? And they want to be able to respond immediately. And if you're running at 100%, your response is always backlogged or you're always
Yeah.
shifting something away. So they actually
Or you need to
strategically are,
buy a new machine or
yeah, yeah,
get a new
yeah.
person.
Yeah, so we bridge that by basically they once they hit over that percentage, they start outsourcing to us. And what's nice is we just stick to the quality schedules that they need. And by the way, Xometry is ISO 9001, AS 9100, so we're able to do some a really high spec work, and we have all CMMs, you name it. We have all the inspection equipment to verify this work, and
Okay.
so we do that in parallel while they're kind of managing their capacity. The other example is you have this job. Someone sends you that RFQ or sends you this technical data package, and there just happens to be stuff that you don't run. Like say you're a machine shop and you machine all day long, but you get a sheet metal part in there. And so the other side of that is we are just kind of that shop extension where the easy button to upload, specify your part, you get your quote, you could actually use that, add some margin to it, use it on your bid to your customer, and then that secures work, and it also kind of guarantees margin for you because you already know the price that you're going to pay and how much it's going to cost you for that work. So it's another idea where you can actually take the full encompassment of work from that customer, and that customer is getting provided by the service of just having one place to
Right.
go.
It fills the little gaps.
Yeah, and then of course you could be a manufacturing partner, which is the other side of that. We have
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, explain that. So you have the people who need the work done, and
Mhm.
then you have the people that are going to do the work. So how does that work?
Yeah, so yeah, if you go to Xometry's website and you're a manufacturer, and like say for example, you're just looking to get work to fill capacity, or you're looking for a major revenue stream, Xometry is a good fit for that. And particularly like if you have different certifications that kind of escalate up, like AS level, like AS 9100 or ITAR. This is just such high demand in our business right now. And you could sign up. You kind of start creating your profile, which is, what type of machines are you operating? What's your sweet spot? What materials you like? What materials do you not want to see? And fill out our NDA because everything is secure and confidential through our link. And what happens is our partner management team, they will reach out and get some more information from you and make sure that we're a good fit. And then we actually give you a part to make,
I was going to
which
say,
is
how do you vet
yeah.
these people?
We vet them by doing. So we actually pay you to build a part, uh, and it does a couple things because we have a full digital control. So what our partners see is this manufacturing job board, which is what's available. It allows them to review the work. Once they take that work, it's an instant PO, and they can get started right away. And they can follow and track through the progress of that job digitally on our platform. So it works kind of side by side with your own internal ERP if you have an ERP system in play. It allows us to make sure we know the steps of this and make sure there's any critical milestones, or if there's a hand that needs to be raised, we're able to respond immediately to it. But it allows you to work that digital interface, get a part made, it comes back to our inspection team, and we get to review it. And that's kind of the first barrier to entry before we start doing live work. We have progressive scaling of work, so we kind of do a crawl, then walk, then run approach with our partners. So for the first 30, 60 days, you may be taking some smaller revenue jobs, and that's basically, again, half the time is just getting used to our system. Because we don't want you to start drinking from the fire hose and realize, ooh, I bit off more than I can chew here. And then we accelerate what levels of revenue and what level of parallel work you can take on board.
So you give people several tests before you to vet them.
Yeah, but this is probably one of the only times
that would be a big concern to me if I'm like, if if I've got a huge this you screw up once and then you're screwed. So I'm going to go to this sort of one-stop shop and cross my fingers, and who knows who they're getting to do it. You have to have a lot of faith.
Yeah. So I think that's actually one of the biggest things, and that what's nice about like I always talk about the challenge of like, I used to be the guy who would go to a shop. I go to your shop and walk around.
Where were you working? Back up a second.
Yeah. So again, I'm Greg Paulsen. I do application engineering here at Xometry, which is I talk about all our processes and help kind of consult both internally and externally with customers the project needs and what are probably the best next steps, materials, etc. for. But I came from product development and manufacturing from a company out in mid-Virginia. And
what was it called?
And it was called Prototype Productions. And they actually, like, the engineering team actually branched off into another company after I left. But what was really unique about that was I had experience with our internal machine shop. I personally come from applied additive manufacturing, so I ran their rapid prototyping business. And we also had electronics manufacturing all in shop. And I did a lot of work with injection mold, working with vendors for that, sheet metal, working with suppliers, part finishing. So I happened to be exposed to a lot of different manufacturing processes. And it was, just fantastic because you could be a little bit dangerous with the job because sometimes we just had a deadline and you had to just start doing the spaghetti test and throwing projects, throwing things at the wall until they stuck to get the job done. So I had a lot of experience on that applied side of manufacturing and some of the more novel stuff like additive manufacturing.
Do you have a lot of engineers like yourself at the company?
Yeah, in fact, actually,
in different specialties.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the cooler things about us is when you go to, like, if you join the partner network, you're going to start talking to some of our leadership on the partner side and also from our manufacturing side. Many of our team members are actually, 30 plus years in the industry as experienced machinists, machine shop managers, owners. So even when we have say we have a challenge where there's an off-angle hole or surfacing requirement or something that's a challenge for a partner who takes on work, they can actually give us a call and we can literally walk them through their fixturing strategy, tool steps, setups.
So you will work with the partners to help them solve the problems.
We are a lot of carrot. We have the stick too, but the goal is the carrot.
That's impressive. If you can go, you must have some real aces if it's working.
Wizards.
How often does it happen though where you go and they're like, yeah, get the hell out of here, like we don't, or I guess you go when they call you.
Well, so any work that a partner takes on, we're not saying you got this work. What we're saying is we give them the opportunity to review the work. they're not bidding against this. So our standard workflow is we give them what the price we're going to pay. So, hey, I'm going to give you $4,162. I need these 16 parts. It'll probably require a four-axis machine here. There's 16 tapped holes. It'll need to be chem fill, masks, and then powder coat, and they can review that work, take a look at the price, and say, yep. And when they press go, that's a PO. But there's no obligation to take. You could always pass on the job if it's not a good fit or you're at capacity, and it'll go to the next available manufacturer that's capable of doing that type of work.
So you have a lot of redundancy in case somebody flakes out.
Yeah, it's that dynamic capacity. Actually, a really good example right now. We have California wildfires going on, and we have a ton of manufacturers out in California. And I mean, we build relationships with our manufacturing partners, and they'll proactively call. And actually, we proactively call too. Any major weather event, anything like this, and we take a look at that geographic area. We reach out to them and be like, "Hey, let's talk. Is this at risk?" Because we would much rather for both stakes take work and redistribute it to the network where it's at less risk. And they also want to do the same thing because, I mean, if you're like me, we're manufacturers, we're craftsmen. Like you have an emotional bond with the work you're doing, and you don't want to let anybody down. And
you have an emotional work with the parts you're making.
I do. Have you ever seen someone like someone try to set up a fixture and just it's always like a little off, and they just they're sweating over that? It's kind of the same thing when you're building a part. Like you want to make sure that it is right and it's going out the door. I like the saying, like, it's not a bad part till it leaves the building. So you spend a lot of time making sure that things are going out right. Yeah.
But you're okay with being sort of the overseer, middleman, as opposed to being the one on the front lines.
Yeah, I live vicariously through our customers, is how I say it. But yeah, it's again, like the whole quoting experience and everything is completely free. So you could actually go on and click, drag, upload a 3D file, and it spits out the price, and you can see that right away. And for our manufacturers,
so what if somebody doesn't like the price? What if somebody says, "No, this is BS. I know I can get it somewhere else better." Can they come to you and be like, "Do better"?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a team the application engineering team.
Do people typically do that?
It depends. The truth is, we instantly price and we have competitive rates because we actually aim for that pricing of shops that have that sweet spot already. So if it's a machine Delrin, we're not doing general machine Delrin pricing. We're doing machine Delrin for shops that love machining plastic, and so our pricing is already competitive. For that specific type of project, material, geometry, etc. But say we do have something larger, like a competitive contract to review. We have a cost estimating team. Again, these are people with decades experience in their specific fields, like CNC machine estimation, additive manufacturing, injection molding. And we're able to review that and actually kind of engineer the sale of that. So we have an entire fantastic team behind Xometree's platform. So it looks slick and modern, but it's actually behind that too is we have kind of grizzled veterans of the industry, and that's who I love working with. I love working with the folks on the shop floor to solve problems.
So you're going into shops all the time?
I wish I had more freedom. I do more of the technical education, and then of course our internal shop. So most of our internal facility is quality assurance. So we get a lot of parts coming to us. So part of that vetting process for manufacturers, before, like, you can graduate up to blind shipping, which would be your direct shipping from your facility directly to the customer with Xometry labels.
Without it actually going to Xometry?
Yeah. But to start off, all work comes through Xometry. It's a double QA. So essentially, the first work's QA'd by the manufacturer, the second work's QA'd and validated by us. See, that makes sense to me.
How often is it where it just goes straight there?
Well, so our manufacturing partners have something called a partner success score, and it's kind of like a score out of 100 that's based off quality first, timeliness of delivery second, communication and activity and other activities within the Xometry network. And so once they get it, as they keep their scores up, which is basically I'm doing work that's right, and I'm doing work that's on time, and I'm doing work frequently, so I'm keeping off the job board. You are that's how you graduate through like how much work you can take on and how much work you can parallel. And as you keep up that score over a certain period of time, we can start moving and kind of releasing you to do direct ship on work. So it is definitely a graduated process and also a feedback loop. It's probably one of the only time manufacturers actually see how they're doing on work, because we could say, hey, this knocked you up 2 points. Hey, this knocked you down 4 points. And they can actually see and get feedback, which is something I'm not
That's
sure as a
interesting.
manufacturing, like if you mess up, usually what happens is you don't see your customer again. So like we actually, again, we have more carrot than we have stick on building up our manufacturers.
So, but wait,
Yeah.
so if they mess up with you guys, you just say go back and do it over again? Or is it basically you messed up, we can't trust you?
We look at the score and we look at it as an entire system. As far as we go, obviously we have customers that we are serving. So if there's an NCMR or RMA program going through, we're going to go through the appropriate steps, whether that is a rework, remake, etc. For that, so we figure out the disposition cause and work through Xometry's quality system to make sure that happens. As far as how we work with the partners from that, it really depends on kind of their trends. Like it could, there's stuff happens in machine shops, and we get that, but we understand also if there's trends, then there's PIPs and other improvement programs.
I'm
Yeah.
still I'm still trying to figure out how you get this price, right? Because some
Hmm.
people have different kinds of
Yeah.
machines. Some people are in different regions. Some people, where the labor is cheaper. Some
Yep.
people are just smarter than others. So
So
how do you get how are you able to come up with this number?
yeah, so kind of the heart of Xometry, we use something called machine learning, and it's a portion of kind of artificial intelligence. So it's software-based artificial intelligence that is actually looking at multiple variables from the complex geometries of a part, like so looking at the features of that 3D model, the materials, processes, finishes, quantities that are selected, and what we think the price is, and then comparing it against what the actual market took the price at. So we have our market, which is these 3,000 manufacturing partners, and they're our feedback loop. So like if we, have a job and we eat it, we eat our hats on it, where we're actually doing the work at a loss, that feedback loop is then incorporated in. We try to figure out what was different about this versus other parts. We figure out a better way to detect and measure that, and we dynamically work this algorithm through. But it's based off feedback because we are a full loop system. We
It's
have
amazing how
yeah,
it can
yeah.
literally. I tried it before the interview. You
Hmm.
take so just to my impression of the whole
Hmm.
thing, and you can
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. I took a print, which you guys gave me, but it was a print of a part, and then I put it in the computer, and then within seconds it came out with a price to make it and a delivery date. It was like in a week, maybe it
Hmm.
was 2 weeks or something, and so yeah, that seemed miraculous to me.
It's pretty amazing because it's a I like to like conceptualize it as parts that are like this in this technology in this material at this quantity should cost this much is kind of what it boils down to. So we are actually pushing this pushing all this data that we've taken over 5 years of being a professional manufacturer, and we're using that to feedback and actually build out again these AI machine learned models that will spit out these appropriate prices. And it is kind of it's mad science really. It's kind of amazing how it works, but it is super quick. Like you said, it's seconds to get pricing and lead times on that versus
What if
to
it was
going
a
there.
100,000 piece order?
So 100,000 piece order, that's where my team would come in. That's where we sit back and we're like, listen, at this point you're creating a work cell. You're not just machining a part with the machine standard equipment you have. You're building out a work cell because every single lift of a tool, every single tool set requirement, every single thing that I put into my tool changer is a step that adds seconds and can add pennies or dollars or whatever to the project. So that's where you work on that engineering
So
side.
that
And
so
yeah, yeah.
for a lot of our customers that are doing high volume, our customers are doing both.
Hmm.
But for the people that are doing high volume, they're not going to get their thing back in seconds.
Yeah,
This is going to go to like a team that's going to analyze it, and then how long would
yeah.
that take?
Usually, we'll take a look at that. We may actually select some partners that we know could do that job effectively, and work directly with those manufacturers. Source. So there's some options actually that we have, and we're introducing more for manufacturer to manufacturer or customer to manufacturer communication. One of the coolest things that's come out recently is our of two things: Xometry supplies and the finishing network. But the finishing network. So say you do have your Swiss turn manufacturers. They just got some new machines. They have high volume production runs, and these parts require a secondary finishing. Maybe it's a passivate. Maybe it's anodized or a chem film or like a stamp. Some sort of secondary part marking. They could actually go to Xometry's website and go to /finishing-services. You can also just navigate from the home page there.
And then they send all their parts to the person you choose.
Well, this one's interesting because what the finishing service does is different than the instant quoting site, where you actually put in the scope of the project. And what it does is it gives that information out to our top finishers, so our vetted secondary process finishers. So this is not the manufacturing, but it's a secondary process. And it actually allows the customer or the manufacturer to make a direct relationship with that finisher all through a single platform. So it would be like bulk RFQing, but in a much more streamlined manner, where you put in information once, you have multiple folks that are able to review it and say, here's my bid, here's my offer, and you can even do the actual transaction, like you can do the purchasing and the management of that job directly in one place. So we want to be like right where manufacturing happens, whether it's the physical production of the good, and again, our auto quoting site can do full turnkey parts, but to your point, sometimes a conversation is needed. And sometimes we really want that conversation to happen, especially when you have that volume work, because there's little nuances, even design for manufacturability requirements. And like I said, anytime you take a material tool set in volumes, I mean, it could be really big numbers.
Well,
and
will people then come into your office and say, I want to see this part here before you send it to my door?
Not typically. So again, with our partner success score and with our other feedback loops, we're able to give that confidence of that work, because it's usually not, again, we're not blind on the work that we're sending out. We're working with these manufacturers. We see how they are. We know what their sweet spots are, and we have data science to actually tell that, not just kind of like their word for it. We actually see the results of the work. So we have. So when we do that type of work, we have very high confidence in the manufacturers that we're working with.
And you can do stuff like medical, you could do aerospace, you could do military, you can do all the different sectors, automotive.
We work in all sectors. I will say that our strengths vary in different sectors. So, for example, automotive, we actually used a lot for first off jigs fixtures. We actually BMW. We're making like a dozen new fixtures a week for them for their assembly line, because they use a mixture of 3D printing, CNC machining, and other fabrication to make these things. So they like us because they could just choose all the processes and press order at one time on one BOM. Where automotive, on the more scaled side, we work more on the injection molding because it has that scalability, low cost per part side of things. Aerospace, we tend to be king with CNC machining because we have a very good selection of fifth axis machinists on our network. We have great pricing. It instantly prices. You can do multiple finishes. We have these qualified finishers so that can actually hit the AS needs. So we tend to find these sweet spots, and that's what we tend to see focus on. But yeah, depending on the service or the industry we're working in, like we kind of have a little bit for everybody.
Because I can't see somebody who's needs a bone screw made, like feeling comfortable going to an anonymous source.
Yeah. And I will say that when it comes, so this is where actually a bone screw. I'll talk about that for a second. A lot of times it does make sense to work, directly with someone who just lives and breathes that, because that's what their shop is probably ISO 13485 certified, and they're working that world. Now our finishing service may be actually really good for that, because then they could go do, the titanium anodized requirement or whatever they need. and work through our finishing services that way. So we have a little bit of that, but it may not be the fabrication side. Where I've seen a lot of metal parts has been on the prototype level or cadaverous environment level, which means like we're a lot cheaper than those shops to make a part. And if they're doing this to figure out a new bone screw design or figuring out a new way to do this, they may be using us for rapid prototyping and iterations, because it's a lot cheaper to do that on an iterative prototype side with us than going straight to those fully qualified shops where you're the second that you touch a machine, you're already like $2,000 in. So it's a different story there.
Do you do any stuff with overseas?
Yeah, so Xometry's primarily a domestic manufacturing partners. We have opened up to some Chinese manufacturers for CNC sheet, a little bit of injection molded urethane casting. We actually have an option called economy, which will show that the source will be China for those that are interested. And a lot of that is, there can be significant savings, for example, on metal parts. Going
so
that
you'll give like a choice when people submit it. You can say maybe somewhere overseas,
Yeah, we like our economy.
But you have the same vetting and the same quality control.
Yeah, actually, and that's it's really interesting because we have our awesome operations and partner management team. We actually have full-time employees that are over with these shops, ensuring that we're hitting quality, and vetting them out. So we are very, very careful in our international movements for sure. But it's something where we see Xometry again as the future goes on, as this expansive network to just make manufacturing really accessible for those who need it, and really easy for those who need work to take it. So we're kind of hitting both sides of things.
Very interesting. Okay, so in addition, so you're your partner network, your quoting engine. People need some custom stuff. They don't feel like doing it themselves. You do the overflow. Mm-hmm. And then I saw on your site, you supply materials and say like tooling or.
Yeah, so Xometry supplies started up. Actually, I think that was a 2019 one as well. And it's crazy. It started up, and then
wait before I know I keep interrupting you, but how long has Xometry been around? 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years. So we were founded in really late 2013, but basically 2014 was where we founded. Like that's when we started doing work. I actually joined on the team early 2014 as well. So I've seen us go from like a conference table up to near 300 employees.
What was the first service you did?
So we started off with CNC machining, and we also had a few additive manufacturing options for plastics and metals. From there, we went sheet metal, and then we just started expanding all our offerings, as well as you're not just CNC machining one material, right? So we also have dozens and dozens of materials that are each one of these offerings that we've expanded out to.
And then after that, the materials supplying and when did that come?
Xometry Supply started off. I think it's just about a year old or so. And what's really interesting about this is it's for everybody. I mean, you could go on right now and order some sheet metal or metal plates, 6061 raw materials, end mills, various types of drill sets, things that kind of are accoutrements to machining work.
Cutting tools?
Yeah, cutting tools.
So exactly. you'll go to like Sandvik or Kennametal and they'll supply you?
Yeah, so we actually one of our starts to this was we actually purchased a tooling supplier facility, and we actually have our own raw material preparation facility for the raw stock that we're working in. We also are partnering again with Sandvik and other major brands for Xometry supplies, where they're also doing the fulfillment. So here's the beautiful thing about this: say you are a manufacturing partner, it's kind of like a win-win-win. If you're a manufacturing partner on our network and you're looking at a job, and say it's you're looking at a $1,600 aluminum 6061 job, we have something called Quick Buy that we just released, which actually takes a look at that. And when you're looking, you could click on the Quick Buy and actually review and look at the cost for the raw stock material, and you could even buy it against the offer that you have. So say sometimes a cash flow issue could be, hey, I just need a cash flow for this material, and then I got to start this job. You could actually kind of buy it against the job offer price through our supply site. We ship that day. So when you buy material, we ship that day. So you're able to get started on your project sooner and integrate it all within this, one really smooth interaction. So you can get your job, get your material, and get started, within basically a business day.
So
Uh,
what do the brass companies and whatever metal people think of you?
I think
Or
again,
you're kind of distributing for them.
it's kind of hand in hand, right? We do offer materials. We also partner with these with other folks, and again, we're working with major suppliers for this. And I think it's a win-win because we really do like we've almost turned into this accidental manufacturer's rep of 3,000 growing stronger every day, and that allows us to give some leverage and some better pricing, which then we could actually roll back and not only offer that to our manufacturing partners, but also offer that to the audience as a whole. So for example, on Xometry supplies, we have folks that are purchasing from it that have really nothing to do with Xometry. They just like our prices, and they're buying hardware through us. I also want to mention one other thing, if you are a partner, because again, it's a win-win-win with that whole kind of manufacturing rep mentality where we have this large network with access to it. And some of the cool things like we have with our investors, like Dell, for example, is an investor of ours. We actually have a program called Shop Advantage for our manufacturing partners, and it's stuff like discounts on buying like Dell computers. We have discounts with Office Depot, Hertz, Rental Car, Sandvik, Online Metals. I think if you want to purchase kind of a gold membership with Alibaba, like we have something that you can get some discounts there for advertisements for. We have folks that do sustainable plastic that we have some discounts for. Even manufacturing financing, we have a connection there. So we're building more and more up to kind of empower. Again, we want to make manufacturers better, right? We actually want to empower them.
Sounds like you're really getting an amazing network.
Yeah.
Who hates you
it's
guys?
Cool. Who hates us? I don't think
or dislikes you. You're a pain in the ass because you're making you're taking away somebody's job, or are you taking away salespeople's jobs at machining companies?
I don't think so, because what we tend to do. So I'm going to completely deflect the question in a polite way, but like here's the thing: is like we're not really taking away a salesperson's job. What we're actually doing is utilizing capacity that was already there, because it's just easier to get work. So you're not letting your spindle slow down and sit for a few days. You can actually take on more work and still focus on your key clients and get work through them too. So some manufacturers use this as a primary business model. Some use this to fill capacity. Mm-hmm. We just hope that's frequent. We really like we find our best partners are the ones who are that are keeping a pace. Whether it's a little bit or a lot of it, we like that if they're keeping frequency up. From a standpoint of competition, a lot of times we're partnering with people you would consider competitors on the manufacturing space. There are larger rapid prototyping companies that have basically their business model is a very big shop. Now those people in turn are actually taking work away from other manufacturers, right? Because it's all going to that one shop. Since we're distributing, we're not really taking away work. We're actually being a storefront. Like we're a bigger storefront than most of these shops will ever be. So we're actually hopefully aggregating work and being able to distribute it out to those who could then access it. But yeah, I think we are disrupting that market a little bit because there are some established players that have had kind of owned part of that, especially rapid prototyping, by having an expansive technology-driven shop. And with our system, I think our system is a little bit more scalable.
I see. So you're saying you're like kind of there might be like a really big shop with tons of capability that they were bragging that they were the one-stop shop, and now it's like, well, I'd rather just go to Xometry and they can source it out, and they can be my one-stop shop. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, and we have a bigger box. So we are working with real, real manufacturers who all have diversity of experience, and we can actually do turnkey parts. So it's not just making the metal shape, right? It's installing inserts, it's doing finishing, it's part marking, laser engraving, stamping, silk screen, inspection requirements, CMM. If you need to do AS 9100 FAI. That is actually what we live and breathe every day. So we are reflecting those individual, top quality machine shop values, but we're scaling by a digital marketplace. And like I said, I'm excited about it. And we've had really successful growth, but it really comes down to empowering those manufacturers, not taking from them. Like we're trying to give them more love, and it actually is beneficial for everybody. Yeah.
Like, I mean, before we wrap it up, I mean, I'm just thinking about, for instance, we do business all over the world, and there's this Italian customer. They have a lot of multi-spindles and rotary transfer machines. I mean, they're outfitted to make just zillions of parts. And the guy comes to me and he says, no, we really want to get into the U.S. We're looking for customers. We're looking for work to do in the United States. And we're like, well, we'll keep our eye out. I mean, we do have it. We've tried to do that in the past, be like a matchmaker. It is not an easy thing to do. You kind of get screwed by one or the other. So could this Italian guy, who I think his work is very regarded, could he come to you and be like, hey, I want to be in your network. I want to make, I know like right now it seems like smaller volume is your sweet spot, but it sounds like you're trying to you want to be able to do all kinds of stuff. So would somebody like this come to you and use you to make money?
I think so. Each one of those, like you said, like when you talk those, tens to hundreds of thousands or millions of parts, it is a conversation, right? It's not just a click buy experience. But
I thought about putting one of those in your thing, and then I was like, well, you never know. Somebody might not like that.
So it's about data sets, right? We just don't have that many million part buys to create that AI driven machine learning again. So that's where
But you want to do that eventually, right?
Oh, that's where we're going. Yeah. A few things. So I think Europe is in our sights as far as growing expansions out, including the manufacturing network. Bosch was one of the more recent investors. We actually did a 55 million raise right at the beginning of summer here, and Bosch joined on, and they have a global network, which I think is something very interesting as we grow. And I think we also have a lot of global leads that have just joined on. Jen Ryan, she's a fantastic leader. She just joined on our team and is working on literally the global partner landscape as we're growing that out. So this is for folks like that. I think it's very interesting to keep them in our Rolodex as we build out and expand out, because we want to make sure that we're working with qualified partners. And like I said, we need to tread lightly as we expand out to international size, because you really need more people, on the ground, actually inspecting these sites and just making sure that we are matching the work with those who could complete it best.
How can somebody feel secure that when they submit their job to you and it goes to one of your partners, that they're not going to just steal it and go, we have people who want this part kind of like this, and this is a great opportunity.
So obviously we have partner agreements and NDAs in place with everybody that we work with. That's step one. Xometry's digital supply chain is actually more secure than probably how most people are traditionally RFQing, which is email chains. We actually using like GovCloud, which is essentially the same type of cloud, basically cloud drives that the government uses for secure work. That we're working with information from. All access, all parts are actually given individual, unique internal ID names, so that we don't relate who's buying it with those parts. So that information is typically obscured from the
Okay.
from the manufacturer. We take a lot of steps to make sure that that data is tightly controlled. Like they're using our job board for this work. They're using our system. So we have this digital supply chain system that really helps through with that. Um, and again, like I could tell you that who we vet, who we work with, is extremely important to us as we grow out our business. We would not be in business if we were taking IP. Period. Like, so that's not what
IP?
we intellectual property,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, so
Um,
it's so this is something that we take very seriously. We have our chief security officer. We're always building a stronger infrastructure. But I gotta say, like we're doing stuff where a lot of classified work is typically transferred through in these same mechanisms, and we're just doing it for standard jobs. So it's really
so,
powerful.
so interesting. So bef- before we wrap this up, I just want to know,
Mhm.
okay, so how big are you? And you gave me some numbers,
Mhm.
and what are your big aspirations? 'Cause it sounds like you're growing like crazy.
So, uh, from size, I'm actually not sure what I can disclose because we're a privately held company. We are growing like crazy. We are giving manufacturers all across the U.S. Millions of dollars of work. In fact, we have five manufacturers now. I think going on six very
And
soon
how are you
here.
guys
That
making your money? Are you guys getting a little, you get to shave a little commission there?
Yeah, so I mean, I can. Our business plan is really straightforward, but yeah, just listen. We have five manufacturers that are domestic who have each done over $1 million worth of business with Xometry. So we've given them over $1 million of work coming through. From our business model, it's very simple. Like we have the price that the customer pays. There's a price that the manufacturer takes the work at. There's a difference there. That's so from our so that difference
Are you
is our
transparent
margin.
about it or not? About how much
Uh,
you're taking?
we're transparent. I
So
mean,
you're
it's
taking you tell them we're taking X percent. You don't go, hey, this is the price, and then you know how much the other guy gave you. Because look, it's legit either way. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just curious.
it's not like that. It's not like you see it right on the take. But we're working on the market fair price for the manufacturer's take rate, and we're working on the market fair price for a customer's take rate. And there's usually a delta in between that, and that's what we're working on. So very often it's around 20%. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Greg.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a real pleasure.